and welcome to the CNBC-TV18 Ebix Cash Studio. I'm Shireen Bhan. India's daily COVID tally has crossed 2 lakh mark for the first time in 8 months, with 2,47,000 new cases reported in the last 24 hours. That's a rise of 64% in daily cases in the last 5 days. Now, even though fresh infections are seeing an exponential rise, hospitalization rates across metros largely stable. A large number of positive cases are either mild or asymptomatic. So let's take a look at the bed vacancy across large cities. 77% of COVID beds in Mumbai are still vacant, this according to the BMC's data. In Delhi, as per the health minister, less than 16% of COVID beds are currently occupied. Bengaluru has over 90% vacant beds, but even though hospitalization remains lower, several states have imposed strict restrictions. Delhi has banned dine-in services in restaurants and shut down private offices and allowed only 100% work from home. Tourism, hospitality, aviation, and other sectors that were hoping to recover from the previous lockdowns are bearing the brunt once again. Industry bodies have cautioned the government that knee-jerk reactions will not be of help and will threaten economic recovery. In its list of recommendations to the Health Minister, the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, or FICCI, has urged the government to reduce the quarantine period to 5 days to help contain staffing shortages. Hotels and restaurant associations want tourism and hospitality to be categorized as the most distressed and have sought a special relief package to enable survival. They claim that approximately 75% of industry's revenues got wiped off in FY21. About 30% of hospitality sector establishments, as per the associations, have been forced to shut, and 50% are running with losses. Well, joining me now to discuss the road ahead are the Senior Vice President of the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Shubhrakant Panda. He's also the head of FICCI's Task Force on COVID. Also with us on the show, Pradeep Shetty, the Joint Secretary for the Federation of Hotel and Restaurants, Juzar Ghurakiwala, President of the Indian Merchant Chamber in Mumbai, and Ajay Bakaya, who's a fellow of the member of the Hotel Association of India. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Shubhrakant Panda, let me start by asking you first to give me some sense of what the impact of the Omicron wave has been on industry so far. What we have seen is, while several states have imposed restrictions, some more than others, there hasn't been widespread disruption of economic activity yet. What is the sense that you're getting from FICCI members in terms of what the impact is likely to be of this third wave?
So good afternoon, Shireen. And as you correctly said, that the Omicron virus has led to a sharp increase in cases. But going by what one saw in South Africa, one can expect it to be sharp, but also short-lived. And at least the early data which is coming in indicates that most of the cases are mild or even asymptomatic, and people tend to get better in 3 to 5 days. And that is also the result at leading to very low hospitalization, which is what you alluded to in the data. So all of these are good signs. But having said that, there are some mobility restrictions in place, and that is perhaps necessary to ensure that the cases don't run away out of control. Because even with low hospitalization, if the cases are very, very high, then of course that will be a problem on the that will be a burden on the healthcare system. The sense one gets as of now, even though it's reasonably early days, is that clearly there will be an impact on the high touch point service sectors, which bear the brunt of any mobility restrictions. This is whether it is hospitality or tourism or airlines, for example. At least as of now, we are not hearing anything about disruptions in terms of widespread disruptions, as you correctly said. And beyond that, I guess more importantly, there is also a little bit of anxiety out there, and what sort of a impact that this will have. And I think we ought to draw comfort from the fact that data globally and data the emerging data out of India, what we are seeing, especially in Mumbai, is that it is something which is going to be sharp but short-lived. So brace ourselves for it. Take whatever precautions that one can possibly take. And hopefully we will be able to ride it out.
So that is the hope, that we could perhaps be peaking in cities like Mumbai and Delhi over the next few days, as per the authorities there in Delhi. The health minister saying that even today we're likely to see a number of about 27,000 plus in terms of cases, but hospitalizations still at about 16%. That is the current occupancy of the total COVID beds available. Pradeep Shetty, I want to address the issue that Shubhrakanta Panda raised. He said that it continues to be the contact-based services, hospitality, tourism, restaurants, etc., that are once again facing the brunt of the restrictions imposed, of the lockdowns, the curfews, etc. Now, the Federation of Hotel and Restaurant Associations of India have written to the government, have written to the finance minister, basically saying that classify us as the most distressed category and hence provide us with a special relief package. Pradeep, my first question to you, the government had included tourism and hospitality as part of the ECLGS program, which was announced as the relief package last year. Has that alleviated some degree of the pain? And what is the impact of the current restrictions on the business so far?
Hi. So, yes, I agree that ECLGS at the start was extended to all MSMEs. Then thereafter, it was expanded to bring in the tourism sector. What happened was by that time, most of the funds were utilized. By the time in the third round, I believe that is when tourism was bought. That is ECLGS 3. And mind you, very few, the scheme actually could not be implemented because of lack of funds and lack of apathy from the financial institutions. And I'll tell you why. Because after this was almost when the second wave came in by that time. So financial institutions have clearly developed an aversion towards this sector. So because they see that this is going to be the sector which is going to be the first affected, the first victim, so therefore no funding. So despite of that measure, nothing really came out much out of it. That is one. Second point is that what is really happening with these is that it is ECLGS is only extending additional funding to an operator or an owner who already has a debt exposure with a bank. So what precisely it's doing is enabling us to take more and more loans, is more of borrowing, making availability of more funds. But again, the problem is of repayment. So in successive lockdowns, there have been shutdowns. In Maharashtra Classic's case, in first wave, restaurants stayed shut for 10 months. Hotels were affected for like almost 6 months. And thereafter with skeletal service, international arrivals didn't happen, domestic tourism didn't happen, corporate movement happened. Second wave for about 4 months. What happens is I have a loan and you put more money into the hand by way of another loan. And again, that has to be repaid within a year. I mean, the starts within a year. That's the difficulty. It doesn't really end up alleviating the problem. It has only added to the problem. So therefore, your question, that's exactly what.
Okay, so you're saying that the ECLGS scheme has not worked for the hospitality and the tourism sector because you're dealing with a cash flow issue on account of restrictions, and in fact, taking on more debt at this point in time is only aggravating the existing situation. I'll come back to you on what the specific recommendations are, what the intervention is that you seek from the government in a second. But let me get Mr. Khurakiwala into the conversation. Mr. Khurakiwala, you represent the merchant chambers in Mumbai. We're getting closer to the budget. While we see the Omicron wave play itself out, state governments are reacting to the current situation by way of restrictions. The Maharashtra Chief Minister said that there is no question of a lockdown. So while there are capacity limits and so on and so forth, businesses continue to be open. What are you sensing at this point in terms of the economic impact of this wave?
You see, thank you, Shirin, for having me on your show. Though there is no formal lockdown in Mumbai, but if you go around Mumbai today, it's a complete lockdown. There's not a soul in sight as far as Mumbai is concerned. So this whole issue of hybrid lockdown, as we could call it, it does not help either way. The trains are on, the offices are partly shut, government offices are partly shut. So the whole impact of a lockdown, the impact comes on the economy. My sense is that hospitalization is the major indicator for suggesting a total lockdown. Currently, we have, as you mentioned earlier, 75%, 80% beds are empty in Mumbai. And Mumbai has done a remarkable job as far as the Delta variant was concerned. through our municipal commissioner, Mr. Iqbal Singh Chahal. I mean, it's a marvelous job that he has done when we have never seen bed shortage or oxygen shortage or crematorium queues. So I think this hybrid lockdown doesn't help the economy at all. The second most important thing that we miss is children who go to school. For 2 years, children have not been able to go to school. And this is something that while we keep offices shut, we keep offices open, we don't allow schools to open. I think this is something that the government should really look at, because there's a lot of trauma and mental issues which go on with the parents as well as with the children. So I think this is one area which I think they should. In America, they say schools should be the first to open and last to shut. So I think
yes,
this is something which the government can look at.
You're right in pointing that out.